Yo, you guys, this is Blacklist of the Abyss, and you're watching my review for the Irregular at Magic High School, Episode 10, aka Mahoka Koko no Urotose, Episode 10, alright? And, this is probably, I say this like every week as a joke, but this is probably, this legit, like, this time I actually mean it. This legit will probably be my shortest Irregular at Magic High School video. I actually mean it this time. I'm going for 20 minutes. Because, number one, the episode, there's just not as much to talk about here as there is in other episodes. They didn't really take much out from the light novel, or they didn't skip much from the light novel. I mean, the only thing they took out were like little conversations that aren't as important, for the most part. Um, and also, I'm not uploading my reaction this week because, um, number one, I reacted to it's I most of it I could just put in the review instead, like just reiterate in the review instead of just putting a reaction at the end where I'm essentially saying the same thing I said in the review anyway. The main reason is because I'm just too lazy to do it, and I just don't feel like it, because if I did end up spending the time to edit the reaction, this video won't be up for like another 18 hours or so. So it's best to just have it up now. Um, but yeah, those are the main reasons. But that's why this video should be shorter than most. If you want to see my reaction that badly, just put it in the comments and I'll upload it separately. But yeah, that's that. Now, getting into the episode itself, it picks up right where it left off last week. That car is heading right towards them. Tatsuya uses gram dispersion, alright, gets rid of the excess magic from Kanon and Shizuku and Morisaki and anyone else who used it, alright. Then Miyuki stops the fire, and Katsuto Jumonji stops the car, right? And we end up learning a little bit later that Suzume stopped the bus, so we had to give her credit for that. Obviously, that was important, right? So, good for them. Um, and it wasn't mentioned in the light novels that Tatsuya used gram dispersion. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even really stated that Miyuki didn't. It was though they hinted at it so heavily that it was obvious he was involved, but they didn't actually come out and say it. Like they didn't actually have Miyuki um, actually think like, oh man, we'll need some gram dispersion, blah blah blah. We didn't even know about gram dispersion until later on. Um, I won't tell you when because that would be a spoiler. But whatever. Um, yeah. So moving on, Mari ended up lecturing Canon about about the fact that she's a second year, but she still acted just like the first years did, and activating her magic too soon and all that stuff, and just adding to the chaos. And her excuse in she didn't have an excuse in this episode, but in the light novels, her excuse was that she was the first one to act, and that she didn't realize that the others would activate their magic as well. But Mari wasn't going to have any of that, and she said the fact that the fact that you acted so quickly means that you didn't evaluate the situation first. So that excuse didn't work on her. All right. But after this, we end up seeing this cool conversation that Kirihara is having with Hatsuri. All right, and you can see the character progression that Hatsuri has, because he's talking about how a person's strength isn't actually he's talking about how a person's strength can be decided from multiple factors and not just the obvious stuff. All right, there's some other things that need to be taken into consideration to determine whether or not someone is strong. All right, so you can see the character regression there, and Kirihara messes around with him a little bit here, telling him stuff like, "Oh man, if Mari or if Miami saw you now, they'd be so happy," you know. So that was kind of funny. But Kirihara also ends up analyzing Tatsuya and Miyuki, because his dad, um, and all of his military friends, he can, by when he looks at them, I don't remember if they went into this much detail in the episode or not, but all of his dad's military friends, when he looks at them, you can just tell they're different from normal people, because they've seen battle, they've seen death, they've actually killed before, and you can sense that about them. They have this air about them. You can sense bloodlust from them. Right, and because of that, he can tell that Tatsuya is a person like that who has actual combat experience and he has actually killed people before. And as a matter of fact, he said Tatsuya was in the league of his own because his bloodlust was intense. Like, it was just super intense, and he was practically wearing it as a coat. But he didn't even try and hide it. All right, so the point is that Tatsuya's legit. That's that's the point. Tatsuya's legit. He's still weak because he's a course 2 student for a reason, but there are obviously things he's bad at, or else he would be in course 1 right now instead of course 2. So you can't really say he's entirely legit because there are very basic things that he just doesn't excel in, that he just fails epically in. But there are other things that he does excel in, and he's able to make up for that, and he ends up becoming epic because of it. So, thumbs up to him. All right, and he said that Miyuki wasn't ordinary either. In the light novel, he said specifically that because of the fact that a guy like Tatsuya, who cares about his sister that much, was willing to bring her into a battle like that with terrorists who were trying to kill them, obviously there's she's not exactly normal either. So yeah. But after the scene with those two, we end up seeing Tatsuya and Miyuki, and they're talking about the driver, and Tatsuya tells her this was probably a suicide attack. All right, the magic was in fact casted on the car, but it was cast from the inside. All right, so this was a suicide attack. Most likely the dudes from No Head Dragon, most likely. Like I said last week, it's probably those guys. Um, yeah, that's that's the big thing to take out of that scene. Later on, we learn that Erika, Mikihiko, Leo, and Mitsuki are also at this military place for the Nine Schools competition. And while they're not competing, they're just there to support everyone. And they got on the inside using Erika's connections as a Chiba in order to essentially become maids and butlers. Uh, well, wear maid and butler outfits and just be waiters and waitresses and dishwashers and stuff like that at this opening banquet, right? And the only people we actually saw in their outfits were Erika and Mikihiko. Mikihiko was looking awesome in his butler outfit. The dude is just so cool. Like the dude is just cool. All right. And Erika and her maid, there are a lot of people in the manga and anime community who fanboy over maid outfits. Okay, like these dudes fanboy over maid outfits. They'll say, I want to see her in a maid outfit, and her, and her, and her, and her. I don't see it. Right? I don't really care about maid outfits, alright? I just don't care. But even I thought that Erica looked pretty legit in this maid outfit, not gonna lie. It was pretty legit. Erica's just awesome. She can, never mind. Never mind. Let me just stop there. I was about to say something that sounded really freaking creepy. Just forget about it, alright? Just forget I even almost said it. Forget I almost said something, alright? Um, anyway, Erica ends up having this scene with Tatsu where she's talking with him about herself and Mikihiko, and Tatsuya's telling her, "Wow, that you're pretty kind," and she ends up telling him, "No, I'm not really kind at all. Mikihiko and I were not here of our own volition. We were forced to come here by our parents." All right, and when she says that, I don't remember if they went into legitimate detail or not in the light novels. I kind of just skimmed over this part, but in reread, not when I read it the first time, but when I reread it like 10 minutes ago, when I skimmed through it, and I would I don't remember exactly if I don't remember if they went into any detail or not, but I would assume that this has something to do with the fact that even though they come from these good families, they're in course 2 instead of course 1. All right, so with their skill, they know that they aren't going to make it into course 1, so they just don't want to go, but they were forced to go by their parents, and forced, essentially not forced to enter course 2, but they knew they were going to be in course 2 and therefore didn't want to go, but their parents forced them anyway. So at least that's what I'm assuming. Um, and Erica goes on to say that any kindness that she shows Mikihiko isn't really kindness at all. It's just her pitying him because she understands what he's going through because she's in the same position as him. All right, which is interesting because we learn a little bit more about Mikihiko's side of things later on in the episode. But in the light novels, there was actually a scene where a little bit before this, where Mari was talking with Tatsuya about how he might get promoted to course 1 for the thesis competition, all right, which is the Yokohama disturbance arc that I've mentioned a few times. Um, and Tatsuya hears this, and he kind of just laughs off like, "Yeah, right. Now you've been pushing a lot of things, but that's by far the most ridiculous thing you've ever said. There's no precedent for that at all. You are insane. There's no way they're promoting me to course 1." All right. Um, I figured I'd throw that in there for the heck of it, and let you guys know that that was said. Um, if it wasn't for I actually wouldn't have even mentioned it if it wasn't for the fact that they talked about the thesis competition here. But because of the fact that it was the thesis competition specifically that was brought up, I figured I'd mention it. Um, that alone should probably tell you something about the whole being promoted to course 1 thing. But hey, man, if not, then I'll just leave that right there. Um, yeah, so after that, we end up getting introduced to Kudo Retsu, or Retsu Kudo, whichever you prefer. Most of the characters here I refer to by their Western style names, as in first name first, then surname afterwards. Tatsuya Shiba, Miyuki Shiba, Erika Chiba, Mizuki Shibata, Mikihiko Yoshida, Leo. I don't even call him by his last names, forget that. But you know, most of the characters, Mayumi, Saigusa, Katsuto Jumonji. Well, I don't. Mari's like the exception, but most characters are referred to by their Western names. Retsu Kudo is one of the ones where I actually kind of tend to say the Japanese style. But he gets introduced here. I mentioned him last week with the whole being a member of the Ten Master Clans thing. And he does his little magic trick using sensory interference magic, okay? And he uses his weak magic to trick everybody except for like 5 people, one of which is Tatsuya. Only 5 of them were able to see through that magic, alright? And I don't know who the 5 people are except for Tatsuya, obviously. If I had to guess, I would say maybe Mayumi was another one. And then maybe George. Um, Cardinal George. I don't know. There's like freaking 25 million schools there. 9, but they're only 9. But you get the point. Like, they could literally be anybody. All right, so um, yeah, I don't even feel like coming up with guesses as to who they could be because we don't even know anybody from other schools except for Misaki and George. So yeah, I'll just who cares? I don't even think it was mentioned in the light novels who the other people were, either in this chapter or later on in later novels, volumes, I should say. But yeah, the point of this scene is to show that it's the same. It's the same lesson they've been trying to push the entire time. Magic power isn't everything. The stuff that they grade for right now might tell you that you're amazing, but there are other things that can make you amazing as well. Right? And Retsu even goes as far as to say that large-scale magic used erroneously is inferior to small-scale magic used creatively. Right? And the Chiba family is actually a good example of this. All right. Um, I think there's let me go to the light novel real quick because there's a quote here I want to read to you in regards to this. It says, "The Chiba family was renowned for using personal speed and weight magic in close quarters combat. The Chiba family's strength lay not in the fact that they could adeptly use spells, but in the new system they pioneered for the training and development of close combat magicians. Presently, of the magicians serving as policemen or infantry in the military, it was rumored that half of them were directly trained under the Chiba family system. This was the case for the Navy and the Air Force as well. Any unit that could encounter close combat situations often petitioned the Chiba family for training." All right, so that goes to show you that again, magic power is everything. It's how you use it. That's what's important. All right. Um, Yeah, so if you haven't gotten that lesson by now, then you haven't been watching my reviews or you weren't paying attention or something because they've been pushing this hard. They've been pushing this point hard, all right? But let me move on to the hot spring scene, which I just did not care about at all, really. This is if you watched my Brynhilde review from last week, then you know how I feel um, about how Japan portrays guys because literally every single uh, anime or manga that is based out of Japan has at least one part where some perverted Japanese dude starts hitting on a girl that's way too young for him, who's in high school or even worse, in middle school. And it's just like, and literally every anime and manga does this if it's based out of Japan. It's like, it makes me think, like, dude, are Japanese guys actually like this? Like, they can't be. This is ridiculous. But literally every manga and anime does this if it's based out of Japan. So like they they like they I want to give Japanese dudes the benefit of the doubt, but it's actually making me think like, dude, maybe these guys really are that perverted. This scene here with the hot spring gave me a similar feeling, but for girls instead. Okay, this is something that could only fly in Japan. All this Yuri stuff. Okay, there's no way that all Japanese girls are actually this Yuri, where they just obsess over other girls and their bodies and start freaking molesting them in hot springs and crap. There's no freaking way. I got so worked up, man. Yeah, I need some water. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, Yuri, dude. I just didn't care. It's just Japan does this so often. It makes me think, like, are Japanese girls really like this? There's no way they can be, but are they really? Like, it's just, I'm just tired of cliches that get used all the time. Right? The regular Magic High School is not a series that needs fan service, nor is it a series that abuses fan service. But when it does do fans, when I say abuse, I mean in terms of just the amount of times it gives you fan service. But when it does give you fan service, it always makes me think like, really? Like why? Why? Like the way it's executed, it's just like why? Why are you doing this? Like some if it was used for comedy that was actually funny, I should say. Like in Brynhilde, the fan service there is hilarious. I laugh every time. All right, but here it's just not necessary, and it doesn't make me laugh because it's fits the cliche perfectly, and it never, excuse me, it never adds a comedy aspect that you haven't seen a million times before. And so those of you guys who have watched my reviews for this series, um, you probably are thinking like, wow, is he actually criticizing the Irregular Magic High School? Because I've never really criticized much of it before, but this is just something I just didn't care for. I just didn't care. Um, So yeah, the only real things that are worth talking about here, Masaki might have a crush on Miyuki. There's that, and they also brought up Miyuki's feelings for Tatsuya. And I'll read you a quote. I'll read you the way it was phrased in the light novel. Okay, Miyuki says, "I have no idea where you think this is going, but Onisama and I are siblings by blood. So I've never seen Onisama as a romantic partner. Also, I don't believe there's anyone else in the entire world who could be the same as Onisama." All right. And I read a comment in Crunchyroll that said, if Miyuki actually did answer that question, and talked about what kind of guy she likes, she would have described a guy who's just like Tatsuya. But that quote tells you right there, no, she doesn't believe there's anyone in this world who can actually be similar to Tatsuya. All right. And as for whether or not she sees him as a romantic partner, most people are going to look at that and say, yeah, right. All right. But she's actually telling the truth in a sense. Like, her feelings for him aside, she never actually addressed what her feelings for him were. All she did was say that that she doesn't see him as a potential partner, which is true, because she doesn't see Tatsuya and think, oh man, one day I'm going to marry him. Because they're siblings, she knows that's something that's never going to happen. All right, so all she's doing is denying that there will be something between them in the future, but she never actually addressed the feelings she has for him. So, thought I'd clear that up. Not really a spoiler. It's just analyzing. So yeah. Um, yeah, lastly, the last scene here in this episode is Mikihiko practicing with his spirits. Mikihiko being awesome as usual. You get used to it after a while. All right. Well, no, you don't, because no, you don't actually. As you can tell, I'm still. It's been a few episodes. I'm still fanboying over Mikihiko. But while he's doing his spirit training and all that, he senses people with evil intent, so he goes after them. And we end up learning about how he had an accident a year ago where he lost his powers. All right, and that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where he didn't want to do any of this, and that why he's in course 2 and all that stuff. This is why, because he had the skill to be in course 1, but he had an accident where he ended up losing his powers. All right, he used to be real good, but now he's not anymore. All right, and I talked about this in my episode 1 review, I think, and maybe a couple times after that, where I brought up this idea that, well, this fact that trauma due to magic can make you lose your ability to use magic, and you essentially become a normal person. All right, and that's why Course 2 exists, because there will be because Course 1 students are the main students, the ones who get the teaching, but sometimes some of them will lose their ability to use magic. Therefore, Course 2 will get called up like the minor leagues or something. They're spares and they get called up and they to fill in that spot. All right, and this links back to what happened to Mikihiko. He suffered some type of trauma due to magic, and that made him lose not all of his ability. He was lucky in that regard. He didn't lose all of his ability, but he lost a significant portion of it, so that he's in course 2 now, and he's kind of lost all confidence in himself now. All right, and which is why he actually stops going after these bad guys, and he's thinking like, I'll just report it to the police. But then he starts thinking about Tatsuya, and Tatsuya ends up serving as an inspiration for him in order to say like, okay, it doesn't matter if I'm not as good as I was before. There are still things I can do. It doesn't matter what I have. What matters is how I use what I have right now. So he goes after them, and it was a pretty cool scene too. But he goes after them. He uses his lightning spirits and electrocutes them and knocks them out. And while he did get help from Tatsuya, Tatsuya disarmed them. It's still a step in the right direction in terms of Mikihiko's character, because he was able to resolve himself to actually take those steps forward and confront these dudes. So that right there was good. But overall, I'll give the episode a 7 out of 10. Um, yeah, the stuff with Mikihiko was good. The scene with Erika was good, where she was talking with Tatsuya. The pool scene, the hot spring scene brought it down. That was just stupid. And everything else was okay. So yeah, I'll just give the episode a 7 out of 10 overall, and that's it, you guys. Yeah. I kind of went over what I said I was going to but still pretty short video compared to what I've done in the past. And yeah, that's that's it, you guys. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.